And now we're going to get back to your host.
Hello and welcome to Platos Cave. Coming to you from Australia, the land down under. That's right. For Revolution.radio. Home to ideas. Ideas becoming more and more dangerous, aren't they? But nonetheless, you will find them fresh and new, controversial, and certainly never shy to really say what we think. Important announcement, of course, is that this is listener-funded radio, which means you, the listener, fund us. No one else will. No government or non-governmental organization. No three-letter agency. No one but you, the listener. So if you like what you hear, even if you hate it, it's nothing like a good hate, right? Please donate if you can. Any currency is good, including crypto. Gold, silver, cash, it's all good. Right? It's really easy. Just go to the website and follow the bouncing ball. Nothing could be easier. But you know what? Maybe you can't donate because times are tough. And that's okay because, well, times are tough. So tell people about the station. Just as good. Just as helpful. The more people know, the more people listen, and the more people will potentially donate. So thank you very much for doing that. If you listen to this canned, please come and join us in the chat if you can. We've got a whole bunch of people in there today. Unforsaken, Batsman, Fleddy. That's a new one. Fleddy, I like it. And those are the main contributors right now. Yeah, that's as far as I can scroll. Of course, there are many more people here. But if you participate in the chat room, it's actually quite fun. I do try to keep an eye on it. Today is the 25th of February, 2025. So it's 25 to 25. And actually, it's 2225. If you really think about it. 25022025. It's a complete palindrome. No, sorry, I lied to you. It's not completely if it were 2052, but it's close enough. It's one of those dates, where kind of read it backwards and forwards. Not quite. Time has flown. February is pretty much done. With March rolling in. So question is, where has that time gone? You can catch the cave on the air, on the line, and on your smart device. On your line all the time, of course. So grab an application to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. Archives are free. Another good reason to donate or tell people about the station. Before I start broadcasting at you in anger, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which I broadcast, and for me here in beautiful Pamela Way, it's the Dirac people, and I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and future. And yes, Dave isn't here. He is otherwise engaged, I'm sure. He probably fell asleep, to be honest, which is okay. It's okay. We all get tired once in a while. It happens. Ultimately, we do the best we can, but age will catch up with you. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Just like Hank at a Christmas poo used to say. No, you know what I'm talking about. It's all good. But yeah, let me go back to my earlier point, where the time has gone, because it's just flown by, right? It's the years 2 months in, and we've seen massive change. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time talking about all the things that have happened. Suffice it to say that for the first time, I think, in a long time, the United States sort of voting with Russia in the UN. It's an unusual situation. I'm not sure how the Americans feel about that. Well, hey, you can do what you like. It's absolutely fine. I find interesting what's happening in Germany. There's a new government that came in, and this is a government that was actually that May Friedrich Merz, right? He's a Christian socialist. I wonder, Christian Democrat. I wonder if he's going to work with Alternative für Deutschland to form a coalition government. Those are the two biggest showings in the recent federal elections in Germany, right? The CDU, CSU, as well as the AfD, Alternative für Deutschland, Alternative for Germany, which is far right and pretty much anti-immigration. But that's kind of thematic these days. A lot of countries are anti-immigration, with various issues that are arising and high-profile attacks and terrorist acts and general unpleasantness, the birth pains, if you will, of a new world order in many ways. It's always been difficult to reconcile two different cultures. Let me give you an example. My dad is Turkish, or was Turkish. Mom is German. I was born in Germany, right? That was back in the 60s, which should tell you all you need to know about my upbringing. But there is a reality to culture clash. Okay. The expectations that people have from certain cultural backgrounds do not necessarily coincide with the cultural expectations or realities of the countries they find themselves in. In Australia here, we had something called the Bondi riots some years ago. It is an overstatement, since the Redfern riots. They weren't riots. A handful of people a riot does not make. Okay, but they called it like that because it sells copy, right? It's sensationalist. It's not the defense really for it. In any event, so you have people coming from fairly conservative Muslim countries, let's say, or not just Muslim, but could be other. I mean, India is probably a good example as well. We've got certain conservative Hindu minorities coming through as well, and they have different cultural expectations. So you come to Australia, which is a very liberal country. It was founded, by settlers, English settlers, so convicts, more than 200 years ago, declaring that we will take it from the existing inhabitants. In fact, ignoring and completely denying that there were any existing inhabitants initially, killing them out of hand as so much wildlife. Horrible situation, and we're dealing with the consequences of that. Even today, maybe especially today, right? In any event, it's a country that was founded as Australia, right? With the advent of the white person's arrival, as a Christian country, and Christianity is like an old religion now, it's 2,000 years old, relatively liberal. Islam is somewhat younger, 1,400 years old. And maybe a bit more strict, maybe even culturally. If you look at the areas where religion took hold, and the kinds of religion, you'll see there's also different cultures, generally speaking. Europe, especially Western Europe, is very liberal and quite open, and Australia is emulating that kind of thing, similar to America, I guess. Maybe Australia is more liberal and more free in many ways. Australia famously has it's a place of beach cultures and the great outdoors. And Australia has a massive coastline with beautiful beaches. And so a lot of the social life takes place there. And with it comes a certain dress code. And if you were born in Australia, grew up in Australia, in the 2020s, 2010s, in the noughties, even in the 90s and 80s, you wear bikinis if you're a woman, right? Or maybe even topless. And that triggered certain people that just didn't have that experience growing up, maybe, or it wasn't their cultural social environment. They made certain assumptions about the women that would dress in this way, completely erroneously. Like, these assumptions are wrong. You can't just judge someone by what they dress like, but that happened anyway. And so there was this cultural disparity that occurred here in Australia between those groups. Let's call them broadly white beach folk and then maybe Muslim immigrants, if you want. And I've seen firsthand in my life with my parents' marriage that these cultural differences are very hard to overcome. And sometimes they can't be overcome at all. So we have now forced a lot of people to live with each other for various reasons. In Germany, people scratch their head and say, well, why did they let in a million Syrians? Well, they already had 3 to 4 million Turks there, so what's the difference, you might ask? But they let the Syrians in, a million of them, and they had to do that, not because they are such great people or because it's such a humanitarian, wonderful thing to do, but rather because Germany is suffering, as Japan and many other first world nations, from a declining birth rate. So Germany is staring down the barrel of not having enough Germans anymore. So if you bring in a million Syrians, which are likely to have higher birth rates than the indigenous native Germans, then that's good for the economy. It's good for people retiring in 10, 15, 20, 30 years' time, because somebody has to pay the pensions, right? Somebody has to work and somebody has to pay taxes. So it was not entirely altruistic, right? And in Japan, I mentioned this before, we've now reached the first time a couple months ago, in fact, where adult diapers in Japan outsold baby diapers for the first time. So it is definitely an aging population. It's a big problem. And Japan, though, has a fairly strict non-immigration policy. It's very, very hard to emigrate to Japan. So why am I talking about this? Well, I'm talking about this because these are real problems. These are real things that we're now faced with, and that's why we see such a hard turn to the right and anti-immigration in Europe. Because if you have that many people living together which have completely different cultural values, different cultural outlooks, different religious ideas and ideals, that's a problem. That's a really big problem, right? And because a lot of the recent immigration happened, and this is not just in Europe, but anywhere in the world where people are going to, flee to, be it America, Canada, Europe, Australia, and countries like that, which are, more prone to give you a life that you want, a peaceful life. Then that's where you go. You go to those countries. However, the places these people flee are inherently violent and have a lot of conflict, and these people grew up with that, right? And I'm not saying everybody is scarred or can't function in a normal society. Of course not. But a lot of people are damaged. And what we're seeing right now in Gaza especially, you can't kill 50,000 people in a small area where 2 million people are living. Right? There's a fairly big chunk of the population that was killed. And no, I'm not in favor of the Palestinians killing the Israelis either, because that's horrendous. I'll talk about that in a second. But you have to understand that these people are deeply scarred, just like the Lebanese were deeply scarred by the civil war, like the Syrians are deeply scarred by the civil war they're in, like the Ukrainians are now deeply scarred. Okay, I mean, I grew up with people that were in World War II. My grandfather, and he was both, physically and mentally scarred by that experience. He hid the mental scarring well, but his physical scarring was obvious because he lost his arm in the war and had some horrendous scars all over his body from shrapnel. But these people are scarred. These people have different thresholds. Same goes for immigrants or refugees from Africa. Africa is a war-torn continent. There has never been peace in Africa in the last 100 years, and maybe longer. Never. There has never been peace in Africa. Can you imagine that? And this is widespread. I mean, there's some failed nations there. There's this, constant war. There's different factions, different religions clashing with each other, both in sub-Saharan and in Northern Africa. Northern Africa, of course, is dominated by the Arab population, and sub-Saharan Africa is dominated by the Black African populations. And it's a horrendous situation, but it's Europe's fault to a large extent. Europe went in Africa and raped and pillaged and destroyed many social structures and many civilizations they encountered. Same with South America and so on and so forth. In fact, something similar is happening in South America, where people are fleeing. The economic refugees, they're refugees fleeing the violence of the cartels, right? The drug lords, and they're scarred. So you have a lot of people that are deeply scarred moving into societies which are very liberal. And it's really hard to integrate people in any situation. It's hard for people to get along, right? And if you add to that language barriers, different religious ideas, violence early on in one's childhood, I guess, and it becomes almost impossible to manage. Not impossible, but almost impossible. And it only takes a few incidences. Like, it's not like there have been thousands of attacks in Europe, right? Or even hundreds of attacks. There have been scores of attacks, yes. And, scores of people have been killed. In France and Germany, in the Scandinavian countries, right, in England, there have been attacks with knives. It's a lot. There's very few shootings. It's a lot of knives. A lot of cars were used, for these purposes. Not a lot of bombs. I guess bombs are more like a Middle Eastern, maybe, Central Asian thing. I don't know. But it seems there's a lot more explosive material around in the Middle East and Central Asia. No surprise, really, because I guess both the Russian armies and the American armies left a lot of ordnance in the area. But what I'm seeing here is a natural outcome out of the situation that we have created, right? So what we're seeing now is a backlash of people that just let me live my life. Why can't I just live my life? Why do I have to look after all these people? I mean, especially in Germany, right? West Germany paid for East Germany after the fall of the wall, paid billions to Russia, put more billions into East Germany to bring them up as far as development is concerned. And that money is still flowing east. There's still money flowing east, okay? And France, of course, as well as Great Britain, with their colonial past, have only themselves to blame for the rising levels of immigration to their countries, okay? I mean, it's really easy to get to Great Britain if you're part of the Commonwealth. It's really easy to go to France if you're part of the old French Empire, the colonial powers. And there's a lot of countries all over the world that used to be under French domination and occupation. So, but it's a natural outcome now that we see this swing to the right. Is it dangerous? Yes. But funnily enough, it's not the most dangerous thing that's happening, right? With the polarization of politics in Europe and the advent of a new right, some 80 years after the old right was defeated, so to speak, we also see the rise of empire building again. We see under Trump, America is now sort of withdrawing from the world stage in many ways, right? I mean, it's mixed messages around Gaza and Canada and the Panama Canal and Greenland, but that's Donald, right? You gotta love him. But by and large, America, I shouldn't say America. The Trump administration really has no interest in Europe or NATO or anything like that, right? They really just want to deal with everybody themselves, and Donald Trump thinks he's the best deal maker in the world, so he doesn't really need anyone else in that space. Whereas Russia is very much under Putin on a march to reclaim old glory. China is biding its time, but it is spreading its influence massively through its bridge and road program all over the world, emulating and maybe flat, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, they say, emulating America in its efforts to gain diplomatic influence, economic influence, and even military influence all over the world, in the Pacific, in Africa especially, South America, certainly in Asia, that's natural. But we're seeing it more and more. And it's a big economy, right? India is not really that savvy when it comes to geopolitics, I don't think. They don't have these same kinds of ambitions, maybe, as China. But again, I could be wrong, though. But they have a lot of internal troubles, and they have a lot of border troubles especially in the north. But internally, India is really having a hard time, right? Especially the fight or the perceived, no, not even the perceived, the real conflict between the Muslim minority and the Hindu majority, and under a Hindu majority government, that you can see, or people are pointing out, there are certain policies and certain judgments and certain activities that are undertaken that are anti-Islam, well, anti the Muslim Indian population. And you can find many examples where you go, yeah, well, that's probably true, right? That's probably true. So they've got a lot of internal issues and some border issues. They are probably more interested in exporting their engineers and highly educated, top shelf kind of professionals to the rest of the world. And you can see a lot of South Indian CEOs, CFOs, engineers, etc., all over the world. You can see it. It's happening, right? But China is definitely doing what America has been doing for the last 80 years. China is now getting really into it. Europe is now realizing that it cannot rely on the US. And I think Zelensky isn't wrong when he said that they need a European army. I looked at some military statistics, and I looked at the size of armies, and Europe doesn't have a lot of I mean, as far as military active personnel, even total personnel. So the top two countries in the world, from a numbers perspective, right, are North and South Korea. North Korea has 7.7 million people in the military, total personnel, right? Active military is 1.2 million, but there's a whole bunch of military reserve and paramilitary. And South Korea has 6.7, so 1 million less. So so North and South Korea have the biggest armies in the world, which is quite amazing in total numbers, right? In total military personnel. Hey, there's Dave. How are you, brother?
Yeah, I am here. I've been here for a while.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. My alarm wasn't audible.
You had old person syndrome. Old person syndrome.
Hey.
It's all good. But and then funnily enough, the next biggest army is Vietnam, followed by India, then of course China, Ukraine, believe it or not, Brazil, and then the United States. We're talking about size now, but then there's also a list of power armies, right? So, and the list is different, and the power is around technology, training, and how much money you spend. And there, the United States takes the first place. It has the most powerful army in the world, right? And it's closely followed by
one of the most practiced.
Well, that's the truth. That is the truth, absolutely.
Because isn't that what we thought of Russia? That their army was, great.
I didn't.
No, but we'll just do it in 3 days. We'll take Ukraine in 3 days.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, that's what the generals were telling Putin, right?
That's right.
Now, the thing is this: up to that point, the incursion into Crimea wasn't really met with a lot of resistance because there was a lot of pro-Russian sentiment on the ground. Mm-hmm. To be honest, that's the truth, right? And Georgia, Chechnya, they didn't really have much to fight with either. These were provinces that weren't that strong. Ukraine, though, was a very powerful country in its own right. And prior, or just after the fall of the Berlin Wall, it was one of the great nuclear powers in the world. Ukraine had a huge nuclear stockpile. And I spoke about this before. They agreed in a treaty with Russia and the UN and America, okay, you can take all the nuclear weapons, but we want security guarantees. You can't invade us. And Russia goes, yeah, sure, no problem. All kinds of people gave all kinds of guarantees, which were promptly forgotten. But that's what happened. The Ukraine could have held on to its nuclear weapons because they do have nuclear reactors in the Ukraine, right? So they were quite capable of maintaining its arsenal, but they decided to get rid of the stockpile. And now, of course, they're kicking themselves. Okay, the only countries that weren't invaded by Russia or America are countries that have nuclear weapons. That's it. That's pretty much that's the deciding factor. Anything else doesn't seem to matter. And so you look at these standing armies, Dave, and you look at the the total personnel around. I mean Germany is just honestly. Okay, let's have a look here for a second. Okay, so Great Britain is literally it's tiny. It's not even worth mentioning anywhere, right? Good military, sure, but just not very powerful, right? Not that powerful and not very, very big either. So Germany has altogether 233,000 troops. France has 380,000 troops. So together, they're just on 600,000, let's call it, right? That's Germany and France. Egypt has 1.3 million total personnel. Okay, Egypt. And Bulgaria, 39,000. Hurrah! Bulgaria, Bosnia-Herzegovina, 10,000. 10,000. What you can do with 10,000 people? Canada, 100,000 people under arms. It's a standing army, right? Total personnel. Austria, 140,000. Australia only has 88,000. You know that? We only have 88,000 total personnel. It's not massive. Afghanistan has got 495,000 people under arms. Algeria has 460,000 people under arms. Iran, 1 million. Indonesia, 1 million. India, 5 million, as you can expect. But that population, even if you had to, Dave, China and India, I reckon they could stomp up 50 million soldiers, no problem, even if they're armed with chopsticks and spoons.
I don't actually think that that's what they would have. But yes, they could. They could. And if they, I don't know, had the element of surprise and did it while we all slept, then they could populate the rest of the planet.
Wake up! What? They're coming. What?
I talk about that with Australia because we're so far away. You really couldn't be, the quiet assailant. You couldn't do stealth to get here unless you were already here.
That's right. Look, supply lines. If you wanted to invade Australia, would be very, very hard. So realistically speaking, you could conquer the coastal cities. You could conquer Brisbane. You could conquer Sydney, Melbourne. You could do that, right? Now, could you hold them? That's a different story, right? Because the distances in Australia are continental distances across deserts, and everything here wants to kill you. So it's going to be difficult for any invader, right? And maybe that's why there was never an empire in Australia that we know of, right?
Yeah. So some of the funny, this is the military strategists talking about this, not me. I'm just paraphrasing them. They said, if a foreign power took Darwin and they decided to drive south, well, we know where they're going. It's a very long drive.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, very long day. Like 2 days drive south. It's a 5-day drive to the west to get to anywhere important. And it's like 3 days to get through from Darwin into Queensland, a 4th day to get to Brisbane. There's not very many roads, and you know where they're going to be, where they're ending up. So in such a long trip, we can set up a lot of opposition.
Oh, yeah. And there's no food or water unless you know what you're doing, right? So again, supply lines, right? I mean, the cost of conquering Australia I think it's prohibitive. Yeah,
that's right.
It wouldn't be worth it. It actually wouldn't be worth conquering Australia. Now, there are targets here. Pine Gap, obviously.
That's right.
That's target. Darwin. Exmouth, yeah, absolutely. Darwin, the entire Darwin port facility. All port facilities would be targets.
That's right, yes.
But ultimately, conquering the Australian continent would be just like trying to win a land war in Asia. It's a stupid undertaking, and it doesn't make any sense. It really wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And again, if you conquer the cities, you haven't got the farming districts either, right? Because they're quite far away from.
Mm-hmm.
And if Australians really wanted to the army, right, they could just do scorched earth, right? And then good luck trying to find food for you, right?
Mm.
Not going to happen. So yeah, it's not a likely scenario. It's possible. Anything's possible in this world, of course. But I look at it, Dave, and I see, because there's a lot of saber rattling now, right? There's a lot of it.
Oh yeah, we're back to rattling again.
And for the very first time, I think for the first time, America has voted with Russia.
Oddly,
on something.
Yes.
No, not oddly at all. I know exactly why they're doing it. In fact, there's a really good YouTube clip. He's actually one of my old economics lecturers, Yanis Sarovakis. I did economics at Sydney Uni. He was one of my economics lecturers 30 years ago, and he was, in the meantime, he actually became Greece's finance minister for a while, and now he's just he believes that we're now living in techno-feudalism, and I agree.
Yep.
There's certainly something to that.
Do send it through to me.
Yeah, look, I'll try to find it again. I watched it, and then my machine restarted, as it does.
Of course.
But no, Yanis Varoufakis, that's his name. Yanis Varoufakis. So I will find it. Having said that, what Trump has now been offered by Putin is the same mineral rights as, here we go, yeah, Yanis Varoufakis. It's the same mineral rights to Ukrainian mineral deposits that
That's right.
Zelensky might offer him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the thing now, right? So Trump goes, well, I can't really lose here,
because either way, I've got the same mineral rights.
In fact, for me, it might be an easier path to support Russia now to get my minerals than the Ukraine, because it'll cost me less, which is true. But it's really interesting to listen to his arguments. Yanis Varoufakis, I've sent it to you, Dave, and I'm going to put it into the general chat as well for you guys. This is a very interesting listen. I do urge you all to look at it and to understand Donald Trump's plan. I'm not saying you don't know it, but maybe just have a look and see what you think. It's really it's very insightful, and it completely explains Trump's plan, because a lot of people think Trump is blundering around. He's not blundering around at all. He knows exactly what he's doing. Is he going to be successful? That's a different story. But he knows what he's doing. He's got a plan, right? He's executing against the plan, and there's a certain outcome at the end of it. Again, do we think that he's going to be successful? I don't know. Probably not, but you never know. Anything could happen. But there is a plan, and Yanis actually outlines the plan very nicely. And he actually mentioned a couple of things I hadn't thought of, which is great. Always a good day when you learn something new. But not only that, so I think Trump, in his mind, he can't lose. But did you see Macron and Trump giving the press conference together?
Oh, I saw the presser, yeah.
Wasn't it interesting?
Weird.
Well, the funny thing is this, right? Donald Trump would say something, and then Macron would say, yeah, no, not really.
That's right.
This is actually what it is. And then Trump goes, yeah, if you want to believe that. So there, it's funny, because most of the things Macron said were completely opposite to what Donald Trump had said. Now, they're in the same press conference, right? Obviously, they had talks beforehand. This is when they come out and they just face the press together and just have a chat. Right.
And say nothing about it. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Now, interestingly enough, Keir Starmer is next to meet with Trump. But, and this is why I said interestingly, if Friedrich Merz, the new, the likely new German chancellor, is not there. Now, Germany actually contributed in second place to the Ukraine. So America contributed the most, and then Germany in second place to America's contribution, right? And also an economic powerhouse. You can't discount Germany in Europe. So what Germany is going to do now, and that's what Friedrich Merz said, we are going to just do our own thing. Thank you very much. And they've started negotiations. Both France and Germany have started negotiations with Canada. Okay, to circumvent both America and Russia and forge their own path. So what we're going to see here is, like I said before, this is a new thing, and we're at a paradigm shift, at a nexus, crossroads, whatever you want to call it, where you will see the emergence of new and probably more complex power structures, right? I don't think that Europe is going to allow Ukraine to be subsumed by Russia. I really don't think so. I do see Canada, France. I mean, Canada and France are natural allies anyway. Why? Because Canada is half French anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where you look at America, or United States of America, especially the South, the two dominant languages are English and Spanish, right? Whereas in Canada, the two dominant languages are French and English. So there's already a certain Francophile mindset in Canada. So I think the French and the Canadians and the Germans are going to get along just fine. One of the big, well, actually, in fact, the biggest steel producer is China, I think, but the biggest quality steel producer is still Germany. Germany makes massive amounts of steel, so any tariff is going to hurt them really badly, right? If they're going to hit by that, so they're going to have to find new markets in many ways. So it's really interesting to see this develop, and the attendant geopolitical ramifications are serious. But again, I mean, okay, World War I happened, New Order was there, New Order was born. The Spanish lost a sea battle with the English, a New Order was born. World War II brought about the end of all empires, and a completely new world order was born. It's just going to be something new. It's not going to be bad. I mean, look, Dave, you know this. People hate change, right? People don't like change.
Oh, no, they despise it.
Yeah, I get
it means
it.
having to learn something new.
Yeah, but guess what? We are right now in a time of massive change. Sorry.
Massive change. That's
Sorry.
right.
So strap on your walking boots and get ready to march along to the sound of change. And that's where we are. And I know it's hard, but it's just, look, life is going to go on. Okay. In 100 years' time, are we going to speak Chinese? Are we going to have the yuan as the main currency? I don't know. Maybe not. Is Europe going to speak Russian? Right? Is Germany going to dominate Europe over the next 100 years? It's possible, economically speaking. That's certainly the case already.
Will we all be under control of the WEF?
Well, that I think. See, this is a really interesting question, Dave. This is why this show works better when you've got two people.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really interesting question because, in many ways, what Donald Trump is doing and all the things that are coming out of the repercussions out of his actions, not just his, but other things as well, right? And I really did think that the pandemic would be more meaningfully changing things in this way, but it didn't. It points to the end of globalism, a lot of it, right? We don't want to have our companies produce in the cheapest country anymore. We don't want to have long supply lines. We want to produce stuff in our country. Now, that's something I wish our politicians would adopt here as well. I would like them to look at Donald Trump and what he's trying to do and say, yes, we should have more manufacturing in Australia. Yes, we should bring car manufacturing back. Yes, we shouldn't be a primary producer. Okay, we should value add. So we got lots of primary resources. We got ore, we got minerals, we got wool, we got food. I mean, we got more. I think we've got actually no, it's more than that, 6 or 7 times the food that we need. We produce, so we export a lot of food, right? Any grains and beef and such. And it'd be nice to see to see industry come back to Australia rather than. I mean, I'm glad that Albanese bailed out Whyalla. The steelworks there. I thought that was really great, to be honest. I think that's a good thing, and I don't think it ever happened before. I feel that we need more of that, right?
I thought I was watching a video this afternoon. I can't seem to find it. It was a female. I think she's the new chancellor of Germany. I forget who she is now.
Oh, no. It's the lady that is the head of the AFD. She's the leader of the AFD.
And she was talking about nationalism and protecting, sovereign manufacturing.
Yes, and her party came in second in the elections, like second most seats in parliament. Right. They wanted more, and see, the thing is now, will Merz form a coalition or not? Right? Because he has to form a coalition, and that's what's great about the German parliament. You have to form a coalition. Nobody has ever got a total majority. You're talking about I'll tell you who.
So just while you're doing that, so she was talking about some really powerful things, and I can see why she's the leader of a party at least, and making sure that your manufacturing is yours, you're protecting your economy.
Yeah, Alice Weidel.
That's right. And by your food security, manufacturing security. So you're not relying on someone else to do it, because when you do that, then you have risk. And that's the beginning of risk. And we saw this in COVID, that Mekki and I were flabbergasted that we didn't react in the same way, and that it's taken at least 5 years for other countries to get their act together. And hopefully, in about the next decade or two, Australia might do the same thing. Because we have an election coming up, and I think everyone's totally scared about what they're seeing happen in the US right now. And I would like to, I think that we should embark on securing ourselves as a nation. Despite our very small numbers, we do make an extraordinary excess of food, which we can sell, which is great. But why can't we do that with other things? And this is the big problem with globalism, is that you lose the capability because you can't compete wage-wise.
That's the thing. And that's where the tariffs come in, right? That's exactly right. Now, again, tariffs though are only meant to protect existing industry at home.
That's right.
So you should build it, then you can have tariffs. That's good.
Yeah.
Right. But the problem that America faces in the short to medium term is going to be, and already it's happened. It's happened already, right? It's in the first month of all this happening. A lot of businesses are in dire straits because the workers are hiding or have been deported. Right, a lot of people have been laid off, and I mean a lot of people have been laid off and laid off in error by 20-something, Elon Musk cultists, I like to call them, because they have no idea. And I've seen this before. Again, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This is the typical corporate approach to cost cutting. For me, this is not new at all. I'm not surprised in the least. At all. And again, corporate cost cutting goes to the point, depending on how bad the situation is, where it will break the company. The company can no longer function, and once you reach that point, you go, okay, let's build it up again. Now, in a company, you can do that. With a country, it's a little harder, right? And people could die, right? If services aren't delivered, if they had medical researchers fired and rehired, but they couldn't rehire them, Dave. Did you know that? They fired the people that were in charge and actually doing the maintenance on the nuclear weapons. They fired them.
Yeah, that's right. They and also the ones on the warehouse of the dismantled weapons.
Yeah, but
they had to bring them back.
No, they couldn't. This is the kicker, because they disabled the email. and they couldn't get in touch with him. No, I'm serious. It's like this is a comedy of errors, right? Now,
totally.
this is what happens when you don't have a plan, right? If your plan is just to slash and burn, and it's also been now shown that. And look, I'm not hating on Musk. I don't like the guys. Everybody knows how I feel about billionaires. 100 at the bottom of the ocean are a good start. I'll say it again. I'll say it every day. But he said they saved $8 billion an $8 billion contract. Turns out it's an $8 million contract that they saved on.
Woo-hoo.
Not only that, all the contracts they're canceling, it seems, a large chunk of them, it seems, and this is a part of the $16 billion number, seems they've already been in force for 3 years. So most of the money has been spent. There's only like 1 year left to run on those contracts. So it's not a $16 billion saving. It's a quarter of that, if that. So, and I've seen this in corporate world as well. When numbers are inflated, made up, it is just complete BS. Because the only thing anybody ever is interested in is the number. So I was in charge of a fairly significant cost reduction. I had to save 30%, right, in my area, and that's a significant number. And there's attendant, transformation and integration with other teams and a whole bunch of stuff. And we give presentations. How's the transformation going? It's going well. How's the project coming along? Yeah. And for the first few meetings, that was the cadence, if you will. After that, a couple of months into it, the only thing anybody was interested in how much money I had taken out. That's the only thing that was of any interest to anyone. How much money are we saving? How much money are we saving? Have we got it yet? Have we reached our target yet? But that's what this is. Okay. Yeah, that's it, Dave. Why don't you tell our listeners?
Just say 3 Hail Marys and call me in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, if you make waste and so forth redundant, I got no issue with that. That's fine. There's always fat to cut. There's always fat. But when you start cutting into the marrow, and I want to say here that medical research, especially into like things like bird flu and things like that, right, as well as the people that actually maintain your active nuclear arsenal, as well as the stockpile that you have.
That's usually pretty good. Yeah.
Those are people that you probably need. Okay? And
Becky, shush. Why do we need 2 people to turn the keys? We'll just make one person turn the key. Yeah?
It shouldn't be a key. It should just be a big red button. Right?
I don't want no silicone diode in control of my destiny. Do you remember that from War Games?
I do.
Would you like to play a game?
Yeah, that was look, for the time it was a brilliant movie.
Yeah, totally.
It made Matthew Broderick, I think. Anyway, but that's right, Dave. So that's where we are, and Elon Musk doesn't have a plan. He's a typical corporate guy. There's no real plan. The plan is, well, let's just cut and burn and slash and see what shakes out the other end, right? No, really,
yeah.
that's
I know. I'm laughing because all I hear is WEF control.
Well,
WEF control.
Yeah.
You can say at this point, Nicky, you can say anything, and it's going through my lens and coming out in those. It's like I've got Google Translate on. No, but I've got WEF Translate turned on because that's what I'm hearing. Because remember, these people are members of the WEF.
They are. And it's the billionaire class, and I hate to say this, everybody. I know you don't want to hear it. I dig it. I get it. No, that's fine. I understand, right? Again, it's not my country, so you can do whatever you want.
That's right.
I mean,
enjoy it.
My wife's sister in Texas, she's actually she works for the IRS, and she's going to retire this year, so she's taking the payout, right? But she also said there's a massive amount of layoffs in her department. So she's part of the legal side of the IRS. And you don't fire. Okay, nobody likes the IRS. Nobody likes the ATO. Nobody likes taxes. Okay, let's just say that. However, and this is the kicker here, right? They've laid off a bucket load of IRS employees at a time when they should be processing tax returns. Now,
that's right.
Like
this
most countries,
because American tax time is calendar year.
Correct. Like most countries, in fact, yeah, you tend to get money back. There's only a few. I mean, I've never had to pay tax extra to what I paid, right?
Oh, I have.
I've always gotten tax back, and that's the case for most people, but not on a regular basis, though, Dave, right?
Oh, no, totally. Up until in the last few years, I've had to pay enormous amounts of tax because of, look, if there was a way of being able to hold my money and, drain just a little bit out here and there and do all the calculations wrong, I could have 5 or 6 cars if I was that person in charge of the companies that I have worked for. Not calling you out. Not calling you out. Not calling you. Not saying anything. Just it all seemed very strange. As soon as I moved out of those companies, I didn't have to pay any extra tax. Funny that,
isn't it? Yeah. Look, but there are ways and means, and some, but it's always the. No, I don't want. I'm not.
We're not saying anything.
Yeah, but you're we're the little people when it comes to things like that, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And not belittling us, but it's just a matter of a station in life. You don't have full control of your destiny. But for the most part, people get a refund from taxes because because you claim things or whatever, and you pay as you go, and then at the end of the year you get some money back.
Imagine living in the US, Mackie, and being able to claim your mortgage back.
Yeah. But see, in the States now, a lot of people are not going to get that check, which they probably need.
Right? Oh, well, yeah, that's where you're going.
Yeah, for a lot of people in the States, that's probably the biggest chunk of money they'll see in a pile all year long. And I'm not going to say they're not going to get it all, but it'll be delayed significantly.
That'll be delayed, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yes, there will be pain, and Donald Trump has said there will be pain. I don't think it's going to be short-term pain, not with the way things have been going. I think America is in for medium, and in certain areas, I think long-term pain. The biggest problem that I see are the tax cuts. And the tax cuts are in the vicinity of trillions now, that Trump proposes.
And they were even thinking about giving $5,000 to everybody.
Oh, that's just like, remember when that happened here? It's like the
Uncle
stimulus?
Kevin's Christmas bonus. I love that.
that doesn't.
Harvey Norman, that's one of our, like call them big box retailers. He made a fortune.
Oh yeah.
Off that. Flat screen TVs for everybody.
It was the flat screen TV bonus. That's what it was. That's what it was. I find this amusing rather than anyway. Whatever. People do what they do, right? People are people. But the thing is this, right? You have to pay for those tax cuts, but you can't.
So as a government, you've reduced your income stream. You're giving people a tax cut. And then you're going to give them money on top of that? Where's all that? Honestly, where's that money come from?
Well, that's an excellent question, right? Now, you can print more, but at some point you can't because inflation is going to eat you. But I've seen a lot of town halls now, right? And I've looked at different news outlets because I don't trust any single news outlet. I don't trust
any of them, yeah.
But I've seen these town halls by independent, I guess, or I don't know, citizen reporters. I've seen them from major outlets, and I've seen the same town halls, or town halls with very similar kind of concerns. And these are town halls that are in deep red states, like really conservative Republican states, where people are really, really upset, not at Donald Trump, at Elon Musk, and the cutting. Everything else, what he does internationally and geopolitically, I think a lot of Americans are quite happy with that. They don't really care. I mean, why help?
2 minutes.
Oh, but I think they are unhappy with the cutting. I really think what Elon Musk is doing is damaging both Trump and ultimately America, right? That's a real problem in my mind, because he doesn't know what he's doing. And when I saw him with the chainsaw, and his belly was flopping out when he was lifting the chainsaw. What would you call it? The chainsaw for bureaucracy or something? This is not a serious leader. This is a frat boy having fun at a kegger. That's what that is. I'm sorry. He is a muppet, And he's a dangerous Muppet, but so are the other billionaires. So that's the one aspect of this, Dave, that really worries me the most. Right?
Thanks for the throw. That's great. Yes, I agree. Look, like I said, and I'll continue to say, warm up that popcorn, and let's either enjoy the ride, commentate on the ride, and see where it goes.
That's it.
I think there's a whole bunch of things that we're not seeing.
Yeah,
that are happening around the world.
Bear in mind, though, Dave, and everybody as well, right? Change is inevitable, and this change you have to embrace because it's going to come. There's
You
nothing.
sound like an architect.
Yeah. Well, I do, right? I'm sorry, but it's true, right?
Yeah.
The change will come. Find your new place in it. Find your niche. Be safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be mindful of what that is. But change is normal, and our grandparents saw the change. Our great grandparents saw the change. Now we see the change. Mm-hmm. We'll live through it. It's okay. And there's the music. Okay, so hey, this has been Platos Cave. Went really quick, I gotta say, and I was monologuing there a bit for a while at the beginning. But Dave joined us, which is awesome. Don't go anywhere. Something else is going to come up that's going to be awesome as well. Have a great morning wherever you are. But most of all, Dave,
be safe.